Hi Year 11s, it's Miss Riley here. I just wanted to go through very quickly an idea about how to approach this next assignment where we are transforming one text into another using creative writing. So there's 4 steps to completing this task. First, you need to read Shaun Tan's novels, choose which of those novels you want to transform, plan using the day map and OneNote resources, and submit a draft. Step 1, you need to read the novels. So Shaun Tan, he's an Australian author and he often presents his views on society through graphic novels. And these are great for our international students and EALD students because it allows you to understand the story without having to read too much text. After you've chosen one of his novels, it could be The Rabbits, The Lost Thing, or Tales from Out of Suburbia, you need to retell or transform the picture book into a written story using narrative structure. So it's important here to understand you can retell me what happened in the story, or you can use your imagination and change it and write a new story based on what you read. Oops. So you need to use clear descriptive sentences with good quality language. You need to use grammar correctly throughout. You need to show your interpretation of the novel and your understanding of how Shaun Tan represents society within the book. Lastly, you need to follow correct narrative structure and use figurative language where possible and dialogue. To do all of that, you've been given 600 words, so you're going to have to work quickly. Step 3, accessing resources. So on OneNote in our class content library, you'll find a tab for Transformative task, and that holds everything you need to know to be able to complete this task. So it gives us dates of when things are due, and the task sheet, my YouTube video, the 3 novels to choose from. And then underneath that, we've got our PopSmart's figurative language posters. We've got how to use dialogue correctly. We've got information on story structure, more information on story structure, and a planning sheet which might be useful to make your story come alive. Following that, we've got a couple of examples from last year. So before we move on, it's important to understand that plot structure in a short story is key. There are 6 elements to a plot structure, and they fall in the beginning, the middle, and the end. The beginning, in the exposition, you need to tell me who will be in the story, what it's all about, why they're there, and what they're doing. You've got to introduce a little conflict. So tell me, what are they doing in their day? And then we rise up with a series of events before we get to the climax. The climax is the really big thing. So for example, in Harry Potter, the big climax is when Harry Potter fights Voldemort. And everything that happened before that we consider as the rising action. After Harry Potter fights Voldemort, there's some falling action where we start to wrap up the story, and eventually we have our ending. Further, figurative language is something you need to include to be able to get a good grade in this assignment. And figurative language is just ways of writing differently to improve your story. So we might say a paintbrush is to an artist, just like figurative language is to a writer. Without figurative language, a creative writer is not going to be any good. It helps the story come alive, and it makes us feel like we are there or we're watching the movie. It's elements of personification, onomatopoeia, powerful words, similes, metaphors, alliteration, repetition, and sense words. And we can go into that in more detail coming up. Like I said, there are a couple of examples, but do be mindful. These examples were for last year's Year 12 students, and they received an A. The students were required to choose one page from a novel and write a story about that, using it as inspiration. Your task is a little bit different. You're required to retell the story or transform it based on all of the pages from one book. So, finally, submitting your draft. It's important to include the novel cover page, so a picture of the book, and save it correctly using your SACE ID number. Following that, that same SACE ID number goes in the header along with AT1, that stands for Assignment Type 1. And this assignment is a response to text, so that also goes in the header. Finally, your word count needs to go at the bottom. When you're submitting your draft, I would appreciate if you could keep it on OneNote. It allows me to colour code and provide more feedback. However, if you're having difficulties, please feel free to email me at lyndall.riley135@schools.sa.edu.au. If you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to contact me or reach out to me in class, and I look forward to seeing your work. Thank you.